All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Friday afternoon, correct? My days are hard to keep track of. Thank you for joining us. I am here today with Heather. And Heather, I'm going to let you tell me how to say your last name. I should have asked.
Yeah, it's
How is it?
Enajibi. I tell people think heebie-jeebies. So.
Enajibi. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. And she is from K9 Natural. And she is a lifelong animal advocate who discovered the power of nutrition through her hard dog's severe allergies. Over the decade in pet nutrition industry, she now works with K9 Natural, a New Zealand-based company focused on sustainability and species-appropriate diets. Heather is passionate about helping pets thrive by making informed, impactful food decisions, which is so important for our dogs. Species appropriate. I mean, just, you know, getting that point across to people. I've got a great story that we'll talk about later. So Heather, give us a brief introduction to yourself other than that, and let's get into this on the questions.
And I also want to mention Feline Natural because that's the other brand.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
okay.
So K9 Natural and Feline Natural.
Great.
And always want to bring up our Feline Natural because we have a truly exceptional cat food.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, we are very dog-centric, being part of Real Dog Box, but I've transitioned 2 cats to raw, and that is near and dear to my heart too. So great. Yeah. Anything you want to plug for that, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, and so much of when I talk about our food, it's and cat is just this little bit different, but it's all these same great things.
Yeah.
So I came through this. I had a rescue group 15 plus years ago, and I had a dog with severe allergies that I treated with, steroids and did all the traditional things, and she got Cushing's. So, we only know what we know. I didn't know. So I did everything traditionally, and she passed. I probably extended her life about 8 months, and that's my heart dog. And so as we talk more, I also just took in a dog with Cushing's, a 14-year-old. And I get to do it right this time. So I'm kind of having a redemption moment. Really exciting because I took her in sort of as a hospice foster. I thought we were just going to give her a comfortable, she was an animal control seizure for abuse and neglect. And I thought, I'm just going to give her a quiet place to be for a while. But obviously I have access to these amazing foods, and we're Chelsea Kent from Solutions. She was helping advise me. I had just listened to Dr. Karen Marsden's talk on Cushing. So it was all this it was meant to be.
Cosmic,
So we're gonna do a social media thing for K9 and Feline, talking about Rose's case.
Nice.
I fully turned her around in 23 days.
Amazing.
Using K9 Natural Solutions, we're using 25% of her caloric needs are kefir, and then we're using fish jiggles for more omega-3s, and then what's it called? The 4 Marvels supplement. And it's cheaper than it would have been to do it traditionally. So I'm really re-energized right now.
Yes.
I've never not believed in what we're doing as a company, but it's been a long time since I've healed a dog. And so I'm just kind of like, everybody, let's talk about it.
Exactly.
Talking about today, why sourcing matters. Because I think people don't really understand, even if you're feeding a really good, diet, it really matters about the sourcing.
Yeah.
And New Zealand has something really unique to offer. So I really, I want people to talk about these things and know. And, when we talk about tripe, it really matters specifically in tripe. Was that animal grass finished or 100% pasture raised? Because if you have a feedlot lamb, you're taking the stomach lining and you're trying to cure your dog when that animal was fed nothing but, GMOs, grains, pumped with hormones and antibiotics, so all of this kind of comes together and really matters. And there's not a lot of really great 100% pasture raised meats in pet food today. And so I love to talk about it.
Yeah. So why do you think that is so important, the sourcing? What difference does it make to your animal that the animal they eat is very healthy?
I mean, one thing I've always, back up a little bit. I learned a long time ago that all disease stems from inflammation and an unhealthy gut. And so it's really important. I can't control the environment. I can't control her breeding. I can't control all of this. I can really control, though, what I'm putting in her bowl. And 100% pasture-raised meats, for example, have higher levels of omega-3s, conjugated linoleic acids, lower bacterial counts, lower saturated fats. Cortisol, stress hormones in these animals that are mistreated. In New Zealand, animals are sentient beings by law. That means, I mean, it's a really low bar, but it means that the government has acknowledged they have feelings and that they can feel joy, pain, comfort, you know. So in New Zealand, they're treated very differently, truly free range, not pumped full of things. So as a result, we say there's one bad day. As a result, it's more anti-inflammatory properties in that we use. Also green lip mussels. Green lip mussels, an amazing superfood. You know, so many unique omega-3s in there. You know, you typically see it in joint supplement aisles. We put it into our food.
Oh, wow. I did not realize that. That's exciting.
Canine and feline diets. So we've got a lot of kind of our meats right there are drawing down those inflammatory properties. And then without the hormones, the antibiotics, the GMOs, things that can also kind of boost inflammation.
Right.
Starches, carbohydrates. We don't do that. We've got less than 3.6% carbs in our canine, less than 1 in our feline. Cats, obligate carnivores. I know we're talking about dogs, but
no, we can do both. I agree. You know, and it amazes me that the veterinary world is recommending carbs that level to dogs, let alone cats. I mean, I think it's criminal that we're doing it with cats because, like you said, they're obligate carnivores and cannot process that. And then we wonder why they have all these metabolic diseases. So frustrating.
And or not pushing moisture, especially in cats.
Exactly. That's one of the things that when I transitioned my daughter's cats to a raw diet, she was like, Mom, they're not drinking water. And I'm like, they don't need to. So they're getting it where they're supposed to.
Water before anyway.
Exactly. And I said, now they're getting it from their food. And the difference, I mean, it saved her female's life. She was in metabolic syndrome, and all we did was switch her to a raw food diet. And 3 years later, she's running around like a kitten.
I know. I'm really interested in learning more about, you know, gut biome and how, you know, I've seen charts on how quickly it flips. Take them off of a high carb, high processed diet. Really interesting.
I've seen a couple of really good studies with dogs. I have not looked as much at cat studies because we're a dog-centric company. But I can, you know, I'm imagining it's very similar. And you're right, it happens very quickly, which is why so many of the studies that they do where they switch them to different diets very, you know, like a week here, a week there, you know, that really isn't telling you anything because it shifts very quickly, but it'll shift again. So you have to stabilize that microbiome.
Detox and, you know, I'm going through that with Rose right now. All her hair's grown back, but, you know, she's still full of dandruff because she's still working all of this out. I just got her May 31st. So we're still very new into this, but she has fully regrown her hair. She trots down the road. It's just, I can't, you know, I get frustrated when people talk about, you know, convenience being the most important thing. Or, you know, when I grew up, you know, kibble was all we had. And I think also probably kibble was better back then.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that. It was very, very big difference. I mean, look at the difference in human food from when we grew up. You know?
Yeah. So I think that's not fair to say that, our farm dog who was fed the worst of the worst lived to 18, but also that's true of humans. You can take absolutely care of yourself and some genetically you're just going to live longer.
Right. Yes.
They have such a short lifespan. I want to give them every
day that we can. I agree. So how do you, with K9 Naturals, ensure that these sourcing practices are in place? You know, how do you know that they're sustainable, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it just has to do with New Zealand laws. I mean, they don't have factory farms there. It's sort of like for lack of a better term, I should probably learn the proper term through New Zealand, but it's like co-ops.
Okay.
And so traceability is a really big part of our mission too, because we're buying from small family farms. I mean, it's, it's not coming from Tyson chicken,
Right.
So traceability is a very important thing, but so much of it is New Zealand law. Being sentient beings, they need the 5 freedoms, which is, you probably know about it, but, freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury, and disease, freedom to behave naturally, freedom from fear and distress. So, and I had great talks with Chelsea Kent about that too. And, that's where the cortisol, talking about the stress hormones and what that can do. So yeah, so much of it is just New Zealand sourcing. It's just the way it is.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
So are the foods created then in New Zealand, or are the okay? So all of your
New Zealand.
Okay.
We actually we started as a frozen raw food company.
Okay.
And we just couldn't compete with the American companies shipping the frozen. But yeah, we used to come great 11-pound bag of frozen that I still, when I go into stores, I've been here in the company for 9 years, and when I go into stores, sometimes they still talk about our frozen, because it's like, well, it wasn't sustainable to our business model, because a frozen container coming from New Zealand is very different than
exactly. I can imagine. So now all of your products are freeze-dried?
Freeze-dried. We also have canned in pouches. And that's something also when we talk about inflammation, we don't use any gelling agents. I actually saw today that you guys did a great video on a licky mat with our cans. Because, gelling agents can cause GI upset and inflammatory reactions. So we just add water and cook them. So it's a great option for people who maybe want something cooked. We don't HPP or irradiate anything, high pressure rising.
Right.
So I would call us more minimally processed than most.
Okay.
New Zealand's testing is really, really intense. Think about the country's economy is basically food production. So they're very, very careful about what. So test and hold, test and hold, test and hold.
Yeah.
So
when you're saying test and hold, that means you can't sell until the testing comes through.
Yeah, we got independent testing going on as we're building the batches, and then we have to test them and show that they're clean before they leave New Zealand. And that's not us. That's New Zealand law, which I just really appreciate.
No, and that makes so much more sense, because you're testing after they've been on the shelves and now they're in people's houses, and then you've got a recall and you've got to figure out how to get all those back.
Yeah.
That never made sense to me. So I love that that's part of their and logistically.
Logistically, they've got that, because it'd be really hard to get it back. But also, wow, I just lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
This is live, right? I don't remember where I was going with that, but they're just very clean, a lot of testing. And also, I know what I was going to say. New Zealand not crowding the animals. They also have less kind of bacteria and pathogens that come about through crowding.
Right. And I don't think people understand the significance of no hormones, no antibiotics. I myself I have severe allergies to penicillin and cephalosporins, which are very common antibiotics. So if I get poor quality meat, these animals, it's residual in there. Yes, they have to come to a threshold low enough to be sold, right, in the US. But that doesn't mean it's totally cleared. And I can tell you for sure, if burger that I get is poor quality for 2 weeks, my system is not happy with me. So I have to be very careful where I source my beef. And that tells you, right there, that it makes a huge difference. And your dogs can't tell you that your stomach hurts. They can show us signs, but they can't really tell us. So it's so important what we put in.
You wouldn't know. I don't think I've ever heard of somebody telling me that, a dog's allergic to penicillin, or so you don't understand why maybe they're
right. So then they think they're allergic to the protein, correct? And it's not. It's that residual antibiotic, growth hormone, whatever's in there, that can be the source of the allergy, rather than, I'm not allergic to beef I'm just allergic to any residuals that are in it. So
yeah.
that's a great example of why sourcing is so important.
Right. And that's a great point, actually. I know we hear, and I'm sure other New Zealand companies hear this too, that, oh, my dog's allergic to chicken, but did fine on yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you point out, it's not the chicken. It's how that chicken was either treated after, during processing, or
Mm-hmm.
what it's fed. So
exactly,
there's a lot to think about. So, I mean, the cleaner sourcing that's happening while that animal is being raised, and also just for the ethical side of it, that these animals are living pretty good lives.
mm-hmm.
They're not being treated like, we've got these horrible movies that you can watch about fork over knives of, not horrible movies themselves, but
right. No, the horror of what they're showing. Yes.
Yeah. And how New Zealand is so different. And I think it really matters. And you can get ethically sourced things here in North America, but it's just a way of life there, which I just really appreciate.
I think if you are really conscientious about getting, like I said, I told you before we went live, I'm in Middle Tennessee, and there's a lot of really good farms around here, even regenerative farms, and you get to know those people. And that's where I source all of our beef. And we actually grow our own chickens, so we know exactly what they're eating. And so it's doable, but that's for me and my dog and my daughter's dog. I'm not trying to do it on a big scale like you are. And so I totally appreciate what you guys are doing. And I love the thought of it for all aspects, not only for the dogs and cats that you're feeding, but for those animals as they're growing and being treated as sentient beings. That really makes me feel good.
And it's like when I talk, I mean, that law took in place 1999 in New Zealand, so it's been there for quite a while. And when I think about it, it's like it's such a low bar. Like why don't we expect and demand that?
Mm-hmm. I worked in biomedical research for 32 years. And those 5 freedoms were something that we had to address for the animals being used in research. So I don't understand why they wouldn't take those are laws that we had to abide by. So why don't they put those in with the American, cattle and stuff production?
Yeah. I mean, I think we know why.
I know. I was going to say, we know why, but it's frustrating. It's all about money.
Yeah. And I know if you go to a Trader Joe's, little plug for Trader Joe's here, frequently they have New Zealand lamb and beef in the freezer. So if you want this for yourself too.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. One thing that I had heard though, is that you have to be really careful with the green lip mussels, because I've heard people are cultivating them, sending them through New Zealand as a way of passage, basically, so they can say they came from New Zealand. I can't remember where I've heard that. It was one of the sources that I was looking at, and I dug deep and realized they were actually being propagated. I think it was in Japan, and then they were routing them through New Zealand to be able to say they came from New Zealand.
That's interesting. I mean, because being native to New Zealand.
Yep.
Why would you do that? But yeah, I can assure you ours are not.
Oh, I know. No, I'm sure. But I'm just saying, make sure that if you just see New Zealand on there, make sure that it's truly New Zealand. Yeah.
That's a great point. I'd never heard that. And also that they're not defatted. Our mussels are not defatted, because that's kind of where that beauty.
That's what you want.
Yeah. And I think, some people will take the fat to use for supplements and things like that. And then sell the mussel somewhere else. We've got both parts. We've got
the whole thing.
The whole thing.
That's another good point. And so it's so important when we're buying any food supplements and all that to look for that transparency and the true sources and all that. So I hadn't heard that one. Oh, goodness.
And transparency is so important, and it's so important that we offer that, because you're not always going to like our answers, but I respect us for making, just for saying these things, like, our bags are not, for the entire time I've worked here, it's never said freeze dried raw, for example, on our bags. And we'd get called out by that. It's like, well, why doesn't it say raw? And it's like, well, it's not,
Yeah.
And so even though it was kind of I guess, a mountain for us to climb to sometimes explaining that, because they'd be like, oh, you're not as good as the ones that say they're raw. Then I'd be like, well, no, we're being a little more transparent. That,
Yeah.
minimally processed, phenomenal, but not raw.
Oh, I like that, because you're right. Everything says freeze-dried raw, and that doesn't make sense.
And we don't. I mean, I think maybe 10 years ago, maybe we did, but not this entire time we've been there, because this actually came up with the avian flu. I got asked by some stores that we're in about, why we took that off. And I'm like, I think it's, what do they call that? A Mandela effect, where people think it was there.
Yeah.
So I was looking up, I was Google imaging old iterations of our packaging. I'm like, no, see, not there. Not there.
Oh, so they thought you took it off recently because of the avian.
Because of the avian. And I was like, no,
funny.
We're the ones that didn't.
We never had it on there. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And it's true. It's not raw if it's been freeze-dried. It's not raw if it's been dehydrated even. Right. No, it's no longer raw.
Processed, which is great. But
Yes.
Yeah.
It's still the right direction. And, and raw is not for everyone. And I feed my dog 100% raw, but like I said earlier, I'm taking her on vacation with me, and trying to take all raw with me is not easy. So having an option like yours to use during that time is amazing. And I know the sourcing is there, and I know, everything is where I want it to be. And I'm not having to worry about keeping everything frozen.
Right. I know we hear that a lot from raw feeders, that they really love our option. In fact, showed you this before, but I'm going to do it again. A little flex. We have a massive freeze-dried bag. This is 8 pounds of freeze-dried, 78 cups in there. So when you think about, if you're feeding your dog 2 cups a day, you've got.
So for a 40-pound dog, how many cups a day would you have to feed?
Probably 2 on that. Okay. I always tell people to start at 75% of what we say to feed. And that's true for all minimally processed foods, the K-Cals being more bioavailable.
Right.
I mean, for Rose, for example, she's 60 pounds and it says she should feed close to 4 cups, and she's at 3. Because if I fed her 4, that'd be way too much.
Yeah. Well, and again, we're always feeding the dog in front of us. So a good starting point would be it's good to know.
In fact, when I started with the company, we didn't have feeding guides on the bags. It had a silhouette of a chubby dog and a silhouette of a skinny dog. And it was like, less, feed more.
Oh, funny.
That, because touch your dog,
Every day. I get it. And that's another thing on my workshops. I always say, people say, well, how do we know we're doing it right? And I said, well, some of the easy ways, hands on the dog, weigh them. I weigh my dog monthly just to make sure. And watching their poop every day.
In the yard and what's happening on the rib cage. Right?
That's right. So those are the easy ways. And yes, there's a lot of testing that you can do, which is fine too. But you can just do, different observations.
Yeah. I love, I mean, I understand why we went away from it, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you how much to feed, but my 80-year-old father lives with me and he does the feeding, and he would need kind of a baseline to start with. He grew up feeding.
Well, I think most people want that guideline. Well, I don't know what to do, so.
But I tell them, please don't feed what we say to feed. And I find that true for any of the alternative diets out there. That if you fed that much, it's probably too much.
Right. Oh, I know. And that's, like I said, it's just stressing. You're feeding the dog in front of you, and what works for that dog doesn't mean it's going to work for your neighbor's dog or your daughter's dog or whatever. So I love that option. I love that graphic. I would love to see that.
I'll find it for you and send it back.
One of the big misconceptions that is still being perpetuated is that dogs should not have their food changed frequently. I mean, veterinarians are still saying, get them on a kibble and leave them on that kibble. What are your thoughts on that? I know what they are, but can we talk about it?
In fact, all of our diets at this point are all line priced because we encourage you to. We are coming out with one that's got a lot of venison in it, so that one is going to cost a little more. But we don't want you to stick with just chicken because that was our lowest cost option or something like that. So
Sure.
at this point, all of our diets cost the same. And because different amino acids, also just avoiding sensitivities in the future. And even within our lamb diets, regenerative feeding, like you were talking about, these lambs sometimes are eating kale, sometimes Brussels sprouts. So there's all this happening in New Zealand too. And we want people to rotate. And, you know, the bases, you know, the less than 4% carbs we have in there, it's pumpkin and broccoli. That's all the other two things.
Nice.
So we keep that the same throughout the diet. So it's also a real easy. But I find if you've been rotating your pet's food, you don't have issues when you switch it up. You know, I think it's, if you've been eating a McDonald's hamburger every day for half your life, you're going to struggle with a salad.
Yeah, exactly. Or vice versa.
You don't want the body to get that used to any one thing, I don't think. And also just the boredom factor.
The boredom factor, I think, like you said, the sensitivities, that's when your bodies will start building sensitivities. That's when it's overexposed to something. You know, that's how allergies work a lot of times. You know, you won't have allergies your whole life, and then all of a sudden you're allergic to something. It's overexposure. So, it amazes me that myth is still being perpetuated. Like, well, my vet told me not to change things up. Like, oh my gosh.
It's really hard. I adore my vet, but with Rose's diagnosis, you know, but what I love about him so much is that he was very much like, I know you're going to do what you're going to do. And because I feel like with the avian thing, they'd send an email out about stop feeding all raw food. And, you know, so I called him and I was like, can we talk about this? You know? He's like, oh, I
put that scare tactic out there.
You know, but yeah, it's you're going to trust the white coat, right? And it is hard. And so much of, there hasn't been enough studies done. And obviously there's more and more studies about whole food feeding, which is great. Historically, there just wasn't enough data for, I think, vets to feel comfortable. And now they're not going back, which is what I love about the Institute. They're not going back and make these kind of continuing education, you know, to learn about new science and what has been found since then. You mentioned raw not being for everybody. And, you know, we're finding, we work with Massey University in New Zealand. And we've got some great studies that'll come out. We're in the process of getting them peer reviewed, but about how it's freeze-dried and gently cooked being more easily digestible. So I've had a dog love raw, Pinnacle raw, but I have had a dog that couldn't digest it very well.
Absolutely.
Freeze-dried and gently cooked, it was like broken down just that little bit already, and then
much easier on their body. And I see that a lot as dogs age. You know, their bodies just don't work as efficiently, and that may be. And that's why I tell people, yes, my dog is my dog is 100% raw fed right now, but that doesn't mean 10 years from now she's 2 years old. You know, she's an active doodle, but 10 years from now she may not be able to, and then I'll switch up. And so I love that option, though, to know that it still will be fresh food, but just gently cooked, and help her out with that. So, and that's where we meet people at the Institute where they are.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's not every dog is the same. And that's, I mean, I think that is the interesting thing when you talk about like a vet saying feed the same kibble forever. Why do we think, not we, clearly, but why do people think
industry,
that is true ever? You know, you don't eat the same thing. You don't want the same cereal. You don't want the same, you know, and what might work for you doesn't necessarily work for me. And this thought that you just have to stay the same, static.
You know, and I got sucked into it. I was traditionally trained as a vet tech and had to do, you know, all paradigm shifts when I got into this. And to me, it's truly exciting to relearn and to enjoy learning all of that. So
I know I love to talk to people that are on this journey. You know, it's like I say, being re-energized with Rose, it's the same thing when I talk to somebody who's, oh my God, the eyes cleared up. You know, and it's like, isn't it exciting? You didn't even realize your dog's eyes were dull.
Right.
Until they become shiny, you know, or the nose.
I had I watched a really great aha moment, on a vet student's eyes. I was at the the vet student conference at UC Davis back in March. And I was just having lunch with a bunch of students, and I always ask them what pets they have because they always acquire things in vet school. And she said, I have a snake and a cat. And I'm like, oh, so what do you feed the snake? And she's like, oh, mice and rats. And I said, so what do you feed the cat? And she says, kibble. And I said, so you're doing species appropriate for the snake, but your cat that's, an obligate carnivore, you're feeding a bunch of carbs and other things. And the light bulb moment. I mean, she was just so like, oh my gosh, why aren't they teaching us this? And it was such a classic example of showing what a species appropriate diet really looks like.
Yeah. And I think, also obviously so much of it is convenience.
Of course.
And kibble is so easy. And that's why I do really want people to understand freeze dried. It's just as easy.
Yeah.
It's just throw it in the bowl and add some warm water, bone broth, goat's milk, add whatever to it to rehydrate it, but it's just as easy as kibble. So I really want people to understand that because I think there is some misunderstanding on what it is.
I definitely do, especially with freeze dried. More so, and people don't understand the difference between freeze dried and dehydrated.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time. Oh, you guys are the ones with the dehydrated food. Nope.
So what is your explanation of the difference?
Well, just a little more processed, a little more heat. There is some heat in freeze dried because they have to start the sublimation, but it's less than say a dehydrated. And dehydrated is still great. I mean, it's still good. It's just different levels of processing.
Okay.
And that's the way I look at it. I look at it as kind of frozen. Then I put freeze dried, gently cooked right here, then dehydrated, canned, just kind of down the list of processing.
Right.
Yeah. And then what does your dog cat tolerate? What do they like? Because all of this science doesn't do any good if it's not palatable.
Yes. That's
especially with cats. You said you've changed the cat over to raw, which we hear all the time how impossible that is. It's like,
well, and in my case, my daughter had 2, and the female was, like I said, she was in metabolic syndrome and took to it. And the second we put it down, she was like, oh, this is what my body needs. Yeah. The male, he was addicted to those little kibble sugar cubes, And so we had a much harder time. And I always recommend switching them to canned food and then adding the raw to it, or, a freeze dried or something, getting them used to a different type of food first.
Right.
And it takes a while longer with cats because they are, they get so stuck on, and they are harder to, at least with the raw, we've had a harder time mixing up proteins for them. So we do it with organs, and we change up the proteins with the organs we add. So
another reason why grass finish matters, organs.
Yes. Yeah. So explain that. That's a great seg into that.
I mean, I'm certainly, I'm not a scientist, but these organs, you're going to feed these secreting organs, these and you're going to, you've got these processed diets that they've been fed, and all the medications that it took to keep them alive through this process, and then you're going to feed that liver to your pet. And I think that's something we don't think about in treats. We don't think about if you're buying liver treats for your pet. Again, nobody's talking about sourcing of treats,
right?
Really. But I think the organs are so important, and our diet is so heavy in organs too. We've got so many organs in our diet.
Nice.
And the tripe. So all of this matters. So sorry, that was a sidetrack on the.
Oh no, that's fine. And that's one of the things again in the workshop. I said, if you can't source organic anything else, organically source the organs, because that's where it really, those animals had to be able to process everything that they were faced with. And so then your dog's processing what they process basically. So I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah. And if I didn't have opposable thumbs, I'd eat much healthier myself, but I get to be militant with my dog's diets.
I know. She eats so much better than I do because I make sure. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I want that candy bar or whatever.
Exactly. I can drive myself to the store and get what I want. My dogs do not have that option.
I always laugh about how much better we treat our animals than ourselves.
And I know it is funny because I anytime I look at a new treat or something I want to buy them, I'm that ingredient panel. I don't turn the ingredient panels over to my own food. But I do think it comes down to these short lifespans.
Absolutely.
You know,
I agree.
They're not going to live 80 years. So I can control this small segment of my life, their whole life, but a small segment of my life to make sure that they're eating species appropriate diet. And, you know, you had mentioned something about your dog, female cat going right to it. Something I learned also was, you know, in the wild, if an animal is allowed to self-select, they are going to select what's appropriate for them.
Absolutely.
I think that's interesting that the females seem to be there, you know, where we've moved our animals so far away from that through a commercially prepared diet.
Right. And that's why it was really amazing to watch her automatically go to it, because she knew, her body knew, it was instinctual that
she was a crisis. So that's great.
And it saved her life.
Yeah. And at the summit, we hear a lot that a real, like you said, canned for switching cats over. Our freeze dried, we have little pellets, and that's the form of our food as a pellet. It kind of hits them in the mouth in the right way, because a lot of it is, you know, the imprint.
They imprint on the shapes and the textures, and I think that was a huge part of what, you know, we had to overcome with the male.
So we'll be giving samples for sure. Also, you can write into us for samples, or hit your store, get us samples of our feline. But I think if you can get your cat started over onto freeze dried, because 98% meat, you're already far away from.
Absolutely, and just adding that right liquid to it and getting them hydrated. I think that's such a huge part of this whole conversation, is that our animals are chronically dehydrated, especially cats, but dogs also. And so this, knowing that you're adding that moisture to the freeze dried, most people don't add it to kibble. They just put the dry kibble down. Whereas if you're getting the freeze dried, you know, you have to reconstitute it, and so they're not going to skip that step.
Reconstitute it. But if you're getting kibble, put some bone broth on it. You know, put some milk on it. Do something. I
know. I meet a lot of people there. You know, they just can't get away from kibble 100%. And so, so what's the best things we can do to improve it for your dog?
And I think, you know, the convenience is a big thing, but also cost. But I like to remind people about the cost of the vet visits. I mean, when's the last time you got out of the vet for less than $300-400? And granted, Rose is at the vet more often than my typical dogs would be. But previous to that, you know, they go in maybe once a year. They don't, you know, you're saving so much money on that side of it.
Absolutely.
So I'd rather pay it in small increments than.
Well, it's an investment basically into your dog. I like to look at it that way, that, you know.
And just to see them be so healthy. Like I say, turning a dog or a cat around is just, nothing will hit you in the feels like that.
I know. And that's such those aha moments when you see it happening. And like I said, with my daughter's cat, she totally turned around in 9 months' time. But that is, you know, and you're seeing it with this dog that you have taken in. It isn't overnight. And all natural things are going to take a little longer.
Absolutely.
But you stick with them. And
and it might happen quicker than you think, like it did for Rose. I thought it would be 90 days at least. So for her to turn around in 23 exceeded my expectations.
That's amazing.
But I do tell people, like, don't give up. I mean, it'd be true for you and I too. If we, again, back to the McDonald's analogy, like if that's all you eat, it's going to take time. You're not going to have one good meal and suddenly be healthy. It's going to take time. And do what you can, you know. I know you were talking about meeting people where they are, and if it's sardines from your cabinet, an egg, you know, there's so much you can do just to bump up the nutrition of whatever you're doing.
I think that's exciting too, when people start to see the differences those little changes make, and then they're like, but wait, if I did 100,
I know. And we talk to people about the 20%, just put 20% of our food on your kibble, and we know there's a lot of health benefits there already, but also what we're pretty sure is going to happen is the dog is going to start picking out the pellets and going to town on those and maybe leaving the kibble behind and, in their way telling you, hey,
that's something I always warn people about. If they start with kibble toppers, that's great. I will tell you, you may end up having to feed them, even more and more.
Great.
Yeah, it's a great segue in.
Yeah. Is your dog wanting to chime in on this too?
Yeah, she's come over to talk to me about, it's getting close to mealtime, Mom. And
yeah.
Yeah, it was too early to feed her before, and so she's starting to nudge me, but that's okay.
We get it. Since Rose still has Cushing's, we've got the hunger factor that's happening. She's doing better with it, but man, she's hungry because that's what Cushing's does to you. So.
Yeah, it really alters the metabolism and everything.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the silhouette of the dogs on your packages, I think that's something else that we need to normalize, that dogs have an hourglass figure, if you will, or, I get comments all the time that my dog's too skinny. She's she's 92% poodle, according to Embark. And so she's very high metabolism and a very lean body score. And people will tell me, your dog's too skinny. And I'm like, no, but we can have a conversation if you want.
Yeah, my friend Lori from A Dog's Dream, if you're out there listening, she's got greyhound mixes. And when we go for walks, you do see people look like, oof, where they're perfect. But there's that, they're used to seeing a pudgy dog.
Absolutely.
And thinking that's the silhouette that you're looking for.
Right. And they think it's cute to have a little bit of pudginess on them. Oh, but they're so cute. Yeah. And talk to their joints and their organs and, just like us, think about carrying that extra weight.
I don't know. Since Rose is 14, all I'm thinking about is how do I get more time?
Right.
So I'm only thinking longevity right now, but I think, I mean, food is love, right? So people do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Treat, not.
Exactly. And that's a conversation we have a lot too. It's like, okay, but what else are you feeding?
Yes, I know. That's when I was making Rose's calorie chart, because I wanted 75% from the main diet, 25% from the kefir, breaking down. What is that? Right. Yeah, it's so much more than I would do for myself, but
isn't that funny? So what do you think the biggest misconception that people have when they hear the word quality ingredient?
Well, what does quality mean?
Yeah.
That is a really wide, quality to what? I think it means defining, there could be, boy, that's a tough one. Cause quality, anybody can say that.
Right.
So I think that's where education and transparency matter. Ask the questions.
Because a lot of times you'll see high quality proteins on something, or, we have the best quality, or, so that
like
word
natural, which, it's part of our company name, which is funny, but the word natural doesn't mean, what does that mean? I know obviously we know what we're trying to convey, but it's like when we think about grass fed, was it 2016 that the FDA changed the regulation or what the word meant? Where grass fed should mean 100%, but I think it was in 2016. I could have my year wrong, that they changed the definition. And like you were saying, it could be one day on
there and they can be grass fed. I saw another clip, and I don't know if it was true, but farmers using cut grass and dumping it in feeders and calling them grass fed.
Okay.
Instead of out on the fields. I don't know if that was true or if that was, one of those made up things, but you have to know where they actually come from, and it should say grass finished is what we're looking for.
Yeah. Or 100% pasture raised. I'm always struggling between those terms because they mean the same, but sometimes grass finished, people are like, well, what happens in the mid? And it's like, well, I'm trying to give you the whole,
They're grass fed and grass finished. Okay. Yeah, I like the 100% pasture raised.
Pasture raised. Yeah, because I just feel like you're telling the full story. Right? Because
Yeah, I do like that.
And grass finished, sometimes I don't know. That's what I've always used to say. It's just recently I'm starting to say pasture raised, and I'm sure I got it from another company. I'm like, oh, well, that term works better.
Yeah, I actually I like that better too, because you're right. You can throw all these terms out, and even organic isn't meaning the same thing anymore.
Right.
And,
yeah. Well, in New Zealand, they just call it grass fed because it is grass fed.
Because that's what's happening. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but we ruined that over here.
So
getting, kind of our marketing to say what needs to be said to North Americans to make us understand that it is different.
Yeah, and that's the same with your chickens too. How the chickens that you use, are those all from New Zealand also?
Yeah. So they are, and it's just called cage free. That is the terminology. They are barn raised, the ones that we're particularly using, but they can't be crowded. They, that like the cutting of the toes and the beaks, that we do all this stuff here in New Zealand, they have to have those 5 freedoms. So it's different. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because if you say cage free here, that can mean that there's 400 packed in a small area. That's not a cage.
Yeah. And that's where I learned with, cutting the toes and the beaks off so they couldn't hurt each other. And that is just horrific.
Yes.
That doesn't fall into the sentient beings law.
No. So again, you'd need that pasture, 100% pasture raised.
Yeah.
Free range, I guess is a good one.
Yeah, it's tough because we're dealing with different markets and different laws and different, we struggle as an international company how to speak to the different markets.
I guess really highlighting the difference in the New Zealand laws so that people understand that's really what's happening.
That's why I really appreciate you letting me do this, because we are a small company and we're not very widely known yet. Hopefully we can but having these conversations, because so much of this isn't going to be on the package. It's
you can't put it all on there, and you can't unmake, but people need to understand the differences and be able to make those choices. Educated choices is so important.
Yeah. And labeling laws. I mean, so a lot of the stuff I'd love to say, you're just not allowed to say on this. Which I guess I'm glad they're thrilled. Thrilled that they're there, because stop people from saying things that aren't true, but also there's a lot that I know we could say that isn't said. But
it's even just encouraging people to look into the companies that they're sourcing from, and to, really, really look into what is going on with these, the 3 or 4 big kibble companies versus a company like yours, and really see the differences. I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So there was one question that came up. It says, what's one simple change a pet parent can make today to move toward a more anti-inflammatory diet?
Reducing carbohydrates. And changing the quality of the meat. So just, we talked about the 20%.
Right.
To me, that's a simple change. I'd want to go a little more drastic, but that's one small change you could do. And again, as much as I would love it to be our food, it could be something in your own kitchen that you already have.
My first thing I always tell people is add fish. Some type of those omega-3s, get them in there for every dog. That it's going to help. That itchy dog is going to help. That achy dog is going to help. That old dog is, all of those.
Watch out for canned sardine sales. No salt, but canned sardine sales at your store. Have them in they're great for you. They're great for it's just
absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. Yes, I've got a little nudge here again.
Yeah, she's like, feed me.
You're talking my language here, Mom.
Can you put a sardine on
Yeah, that's great. Well, Heather, I have enjoyed this conversation. I'm looking so forward to meeting you in San Diego at the summit. Heather's going to be one of our partners at the summit, and so you get to meet her in person and see her amazing product. The summit is on October 11th and 12th in San Diego. Grab your tickets now. They are starting to go pretty fast. Feedreal.com/summit is where you can get those tickets. And we would love to see all of you there. So anything you'd like to say before we go?
I'm really looking forward to being there and really talking to the people that are, so interested in nutrition come to you. So I'm really excited to meet with them and answer any questions they have.
I'm going to put this up. We do have an offer of 20% off the products. That's valid through 11/15.
Yeah.
And
so we wanted to get through a month past the summit. But also for independent pet stores, we have $20 off this big bag next month, $10 off this month. So we've got, I always want to talk about independents because they're the ones really out there doing the hard work of explaining our food because I'm everywhere. So yes, 20% off on our website, but please go see your independent.
I love that. I love that. Is there a place on your website that shows the independents that sell your product?
Yeah, there's a where to buy section on there.
Oh, great. That's great.
If they don't carry us yet, please ask.
Yeah, exactly. A great way.
We're not well known yet, but we're really trying to get our information out there and share it and get into more independent stores. So
Sure. I love the little independent stores anyway. They're such a wealth of knowledge, and they're great.
That's how I met Chelsea Kent. I went into her store and she asked the questions. I mean, most of what I know is because she asked me, and I had to go back and get the answers. I didn't really know. I knew I loved New Zealand and I loved this product, but going deeper and deeper into nutrition is because independent stores asked.
They do, and they take the time with you, and they help you with your specific dog.
And everybody needs this person in their neighborhood to go in and talk to, and
absolutely.
When you use the amount of stuff that some of these store owners know is just.
Yeah, I'm going to show you this. A person put up about store locator. So great job.
Put in your zip code and find somebody near you.
I love that. I'm going to do that.
We just recently got distribution in the Southeast. Okay. So we may not have much around you yet, but we're going to work on it. And if you've got any store names we should visit, please send them my way. Yeah,
I definitely want to introduce the co-op that I get all of our food from.
Oh, great.
They carry Solutions stuff there. They carry, some of the big names. So I'll get you.
Please do, because we haven't had distribution in the Southeast for a while, but now we're back. So
cool.
We're ready to grow.
Awesome. That's great. Yes, I will definitely do that. All right, Heather, I will see you soon.
Yes. Happy Friday, everybody.
Thanks. You too. All right.